I'm so happy that you decided to join me all week long for a week of wonderful. Did you have a good time? I enjoyed inspiring you. And so for our grand finale, I wanted to have my husband join me, Mr. Raymond, because we're going to be talking about relationships and how to stay in love during the tough times. And our story isn't perfect, nowhere near perfect, but we serve a perfect God. And that really makes all the difference in our journey. And so we're going to share some things with you, some personal stories. We're going to be very organic and very open because we want to be able to inspire you in your romantic relationships. And so I know for us, we're going to talk about just the transition when we first got married, how that looked for us. And because we came from totally different backgrounds, I came from a middle-class family who both parents were in the home, and it was a very strict household. Whereas Raymond's background he was completely different in terms of it was a single-parent home. And he was raised very much on the streets, meaning that he was kind of doing his own thing, a bad boy kind of mentality, but ended up changing his life. And so independently, we live very different lives. And before getting married, we were able to walk into our single seasons and really maximize that season. And that's another topic for another day. But that was very helpful in terms of us having a good foundation for marriage. But when we got married, we had to learn to adjust, right, baby?
Yeah, we had to learn to adjust big time. And in marriage, one of the things that you have to do to make your marriage work is be willing to adjust and make the adjustments where necessary. It's going to make a big difference in your marriage.
And I think one thing that we learned to do, and it wasn't always easy, was just to listen and respect each other. And even now, you know, we've been married for quite a few years, and we still have to learn to step back and respect who each other really are. And so, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and sometimes as men, you know, most men have huge egos, and I, for one, is no different from any other man. You know, and sometimes our egos or pride may get in the way, but what works for us is when I figure out that that's happening with me, I'm able to go back and say, hey, look, you know what? I apologize for that. You know, I took the wrong approach, and I go back and apologize, and you'll be amazed at what apologizing will do in helping your marriage to grow and you become strong in your marriage.
Well, I think too, another thing that helped us is just having a vision of where we're going. Vision drives us. Even when we were dating, we had a vision of the type family that we wanted, what we wanted individually, and what we wanted in our marriage. So oftentimes, whenever he's getting on my nerves, I'll be mindful of the vision and where we're headed, because I can't allow a temporary situation to kind of distract me from really the big picture. We got so many great things going on that I can't allow, because he forgot to put something back, I can't allow that to upset me and just ruin my day. Right?
Yeah, and I think what people need to realize that in relationships, there are always going to be offenses. And sometimes I think that people allow one offense or two offense to destroy something that they work so hard on. I mean, think about it. If you have a million things that were going right and one thing that went wrong, one offense that went wrong, would you throw away a million for one? That doesn't even make sense. That's not even logical. And so you have to look at the big picture and say, is it even worth it, you know, just fighting all week because he didn't put down the toilet seat, or he didn't do this, or he didn't wash the dishes? You know what? Work on those areas, but don't throw away your marriage or throw away a relationship or throw away something that could be so great for just one offense. You have to forgive and move on, and forgiveness is a big part of having a healthy marriage.
It is. So we've learned, and I'm still learning, to just let things go, because I'll be one that'll kind of linger just a little bit, but Raymond is really good about just being like, okay, you know, forget it, moving on. But anyway, in regard to transitioning, those of you who are the beginning throes of marriage, it's beautiful now. You're in the honeymoon phase, and things are going to change in terms of just understanding the dynamics of life. And I wanted to kind of talk about how it is as a male, you know, as a male, to the pressure that you feel to provide for your family is one that's really God-given. You know, you want to be able to give the best to your family, to your wife, to your kids. And so can you talk a little bit about how a wife can help to assist her husband as he kind of walks into the best years of his life and discovering more of who he is?
You know, I believe that one of the most important things, or the most important thing that a wife can do, is help her husband to feel and believe that she believes in him. She believes in his dream, she believes in his vision, she believes in his goals. And trust me, you don't know how much men would appreciate that. men love to be respected, and as soon as you start disrespecting him, as soon as you make him feel like you don't believe in what he's capable of doing or what he wants to do, it causes a problem immediately. And so, you know, you want to make sure that you believe in him and he knows that you believe in him.
And I think for me, when we first met, I took a lot of time just praying and asking God, okay, is this the one? Is this who he is? And so during that phase of us courting, I really got a lot of answers about who Raymond really was. And so a lot of things that we're doing now, I already knew that they were going to come about just because I was a praying woman. And so I think prayer is an answer. A lot of women don't know who their husbands really are, you know, and I can look at him and say, you know, yeah, this is what you do. You know, at this point, this is your job, da 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 da. But we have to look further into really who is this man? How did God design him, and what is his purpose? And I think as a wife, you knowing who you are and you understanding who he is will help you to really encourage him in his gifting and in his assignment.
And you know, on the other side of the spectrum, you want to marry somebody or you want to be in a relationship with somebody as a woman who would actually help to cultivate you into who you're supposed to become, who actually will support you and be behind you and believe in what you're doing and help it to come into fruition.
So let's talk about how we've been able to do that. So all week long, Week of Wonderful, behind the scenes, this is who was helping me, alongside other people also on my team, my assistant and such. But he was the one who was really hands-on and helping me to set things up and get things done. And it was because he believed in me. And so, you know, it's really a reciprocal thing. I know one person asked me before, well, how am I supposed to dream? How do I go forth in my dreams if I'm always supporting my husband? How do I balance that? And so the question is, can you have it all? And my answer is this. For me personally, I've set a precedence that my home is going to be first. Before I go after any dream, before I try and change anybody else's life, I need to make sure that my house is in order. And so I know a lot of women are trying to figure it out, right? Can I work full time and can I still have the family that I want, the marriage that I want? Everything has to be maintained. And so every season is going to teach you something different. And so you have to maximize the season that you're in. And then once you're able to do that, I think you can add more to it. But if your house is out of order, really, I think this is your main responsibility, or at least for us. It's my main responsibility is my house and to make sure that my husband and kids are taken care of. So everybody's different. And so you have to figure out what works best for you. So I want to talk about just how to get through tough times. We talked about how to adjust when you're first getting married and what that looks like. But I want to talk about tough times. And for us, we've walked through a lot. And we don't necessarily say it publicly, but we have a private inner circle that we share a lot with in terms of whenever we're facing really hard times. And it's not always easy. We know that life is going to throw in some curveballs and you just really don't know what's coming next. And so one of the beautiful things, though, I think is in walking together, you know, we're able to really be a great support. And so there's been times where we've had to walk through some tough things. I can give you certain examples. When we first had our firstborn, the doctor gave a diagnosis that he would have Down syndrome. That was a very tough time. There were times where we thought that because we're business owners, certain contracts that we thought were coming didn't come, and that affects our household, right? Being able to really, you know, have faith to walk through those tough seasons, adjusting and transitioning and believing God when he says one thing and life looks something completely different. So can you give some principles about how to get through tough times so that we can live our best lives?
Well, in terms of tough times, people have to remember that tough times don't last. You have to have it in your mind. It has to be a philosophy that no matter how tough things get, that you are prepared to be tougher. And for case in point, with the situation with our firstborn Chancellor being diagnosed with Down syndrome and you were pregnant with him, I knew that as the leader of the home, as the father, that I had to stand up and be strong for both myself and my wife and my unborn son, because he didn't know how to have faith himself. And so I had to speak the word of God over the situation and just believe that it would happen. And I tell you, every time we went back to the doctor, the numbers went down and it totally disappeared. And so we have to understand that during tough times, we have to make it to the point where we have in our mind that no matter what happens, right, I'm going to survive the situation. Mm-hmm. That's the mentality you always should have as a woman, as a man, and anything that you're going through, you're able to overcome.
And I think too, for me, I know that a lot of men don't communicate, right? They keep things kind of held in a lot. And so what I've learned to do and what we've learned to do is oftentimes I would say, well, you know, Raymond, how do you feel about this? And he'd be like, I'm cool. And that's his answer. And it wasn't that he was trying to be rude or he was trying to withhold information. It's just the way that a man is. He's just not going to open up quite as much. And so we've learned the art of conversation, being able to just talk. And so oftentimes if I feel as if we're kind of drifting, I'll say, okay, baby, we just need to kind of sit down. Tell me what's going on with you, right? And so we're able to identify when it's time for me to pull out kind of what's going on inside of here, right? Not for showmanship, not because you want me to feel a certain way, but for real, tell me what's going on with you. And so I think that's important too.
Yeah, I mean, a proper communication is key to a successful marriage as well. You have to communicate effectively, especially as a male. You know, you have to let your wife know what's going on in your heart, because if she don't know your heart, then she can't speak into believing in something that's in your heart. And so, you know, even though most men tend to hold things in, you have to get to the place where you're sharing with your wife and letting that out. And women, you have to listen. Instead of talking so much, you have to listen and try to figure out truly what he's trying to say to you, because sometimes what he's trying to say is a lot deeper what it is on the surface. And so you have to listen carefully and ask God to help you to understand it at a deeper level.
You know what, there's just a few more things and we're going to be finished for today. But I think for us personally, if you're walking through a tough season in your marriage, I think the first thing that you need to do is really ask God to make sure that he helps you through it. Ask for help. That's one of the greatest things that you can do. Even if you're in a dating relationship and you all are trying to figure things out, ask God for help. That's really why I feel as if we've been able to walk through tough seasons, because God is the answer. He's the foundation for our marriage. The second thing I mentioned before, and we'll kind of revamp or recap, is that vision is key. Understanding where you're going as a couple, and this is another thing we had to walk through. Raymond has this idea of what vision should be, and I have another idea. I want to know details. Okay, tell me how we're going to get from A to Z. What are we doing? And his thing is, this is what it looks like. And so then I have to learn, well, that's what he sees. Now it's my place then to help him. Let's figure out how we're going to make this happen. And so understanding how he sees things, or how your husband or your spouse sees things, is important. And then thirdly, we talked about communicating effectively, making sure that's key, and then having conversations about what's not being said. And then finally, I want to just talk about mentorship and what that should look like. I know for us, we have marriage mentors, relationships that we absolutely adore. Others that are very real and very, again, they're going to tell it like it is, but it's very helpful for us because it allows us to be able to see and have a picture of, you know, what a marriage should look like. We read a lot of books. We've gone to a lot of marriage seminars, kind of to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of what I've learned about marriage too is reading books. And I think that a lot of marriage couples, they don't like to read books. You know, one of our mentors, they're always reading books. Every time I see them, they're reading a book. I mean, they've been married for 20, 30 years. And the other day I saw one of them pulled out a marriage book. You married 30 years and you're still reading on marriage? Mm-hmm. Because marriage is always evolving, is always changing. And so you have to constantly be learning more about your marriage, learning more about yourself, learning more about your spouse. You know, I have to keep learning about her because, especially as a woman, she is always changing. You know, sometimes month to month, sometimes year to year.
Sometimes week to week.
Sometimes day to day, you know, but but the reality of it is, you know, in a marriage, you have to be able to make the adjustments. You know, it's like a game. You know, sometimes you may be getting a beat down in your marriage, but you have to, at halftime, you have to say, okay, this is halftime. Let me make some adjustments so that I can go out and win this day. I can go out and win this week or this month or this year. And there's going to be tough years, but then there's going to be great years.
Right.
And you have to capitalize on the great years and learn from the tougher years so that your marriage can be constantly successful. I'm going to leave you with this. If you love your spouse, your marriage will work. But more than just loving your spouse, you have to love your spouse and work your marriage with knowledge. Mm-hmm. Love is not enough to keep your marriage going, but you have to apply knowledge to your marriage, and you have to apply goals, and you have to apply a relentless mentality so that your marriage will be successful. And you don't just want to have a marriage that's long. You want to have a marriage that's successful. You know, being married for 50 years don't mean nothing if you were 50 years of unhappy. Mm-hmm. So you want to have a successful marriage where there's whether it's joy, whether it's triumph, where you cry together, where you win together, and you rise up on the top of the mountain together. That's what marriage is all about. And at the end of the day, when you look back, you can say, man, you know, if I had to do this all over again, I would do it, simply because I had the best partner in the world. And so that's what you want your marriage to be like.
That's good, baby.
Well, you know, I'm just good like that.
So anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope that you had a wonderful week. That's what I wanted it to be. I wanted to inspire you, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that there's life after whatever season that you're in. There's always something better.
Yes.
And it's going to lead you to your best. So anyway, if you have any other questions, feel free to email us. We'll love to hear from you. And just one more email coming a little later this afternoon, and that'll be the end of this session of Week of Wonderful. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Hope you guys enjoy the week. Take care.